I pulled into my driveway at 11:30 that night, exhausted and frustrated. My flight to Phoenix had been canceled due to mechanical problems, and all I wanted was my own bed. But as I stepped out of my car, I froze. Lights were on inside my house. Two shadowy figures stood by my back door working on something with tools. I approached quietly, my heart pounding. Then I saw them clearly. My son Derek and his wife Crystal breaking my lock. I shouted into the darkness, "What are you doing in my house?" Derek spun around, his face going white as a sheet. "Dad, you weren't supposed to be home." His voice cracked with panic. Crystal dropped the screwdriver she'd been holding and it clattered against the concrete patio. I stood there, 67 years old, a retired engineer who'd never expected to catch his own son breaking into his house. My hands were shaking, but I kept my voice steady. I pulled out my phone and hit record. "I'll ask you again. What are you doing?" Derek stammered, his eyes darting between me and Crystal. "We just needed to get something. Some documents I left here years ago. Important papers." I felt anger rising in my chest. "You moved out 15 years ago, Derek. You've been in this house hundreds of times since then. You have a key. Why are you breaking my lock at midnight?" Crystal stepped forward, her face twisted with defensiveness. "You're overreacting, Sean. We're family. This is ridiculous." I noticed the duffel bag at their feet, the flashlights. This wasn't some spontaneous visit. They'd planned this. I walked past them into my house, my heart sinking with each step. The door to my home office stood wide open. Papers were scattered across my desk and floor. My filing cabinet hung open, folders pulled out and rifled through. Then I saw it. The painting that concealed my wall safe had been moved aside. Scratch marks surrounded the combination lock where they'd tried to pry it open. Derek followed me inside, and his whole demeanor shifted. The panic gave way to something harder, more desperate. "We need money, Dad. Just $50,000. You have plenty. You just sold that property in Riverside." I turned to face him, stunned. "How do you know about that sale?" "That was confidential information between me and my lawyer." Crystal blurted out before Derek could stop her. "Your lawyer told us about it. Tom said you got $200,000 for it." The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Tom Harrison had been my attorney for 20 years. I'd trusted him with everything after my wife Margaret passed 5 years ago, and he'd been sharing my private financial information with my son. Derek must have seen something in my face because he started pleading. "Dad, we're in serious financial trouble. The bank is going to foreclose on our house. We're desperate. I'm your son. You have to help us." I took a deep breath, trying to be reasonable despite the rage and hurt churning inside me. "If you need help, we can discuss it properly. In daylight. With paperwork. A legitimate loan with terms. But this breaking into my house, this is wrong, Derek." Derek and Crystal exchanged a look. Something dark passed between them. A silent communication that made my stomach turn. Crystal reached into her purse and pulled out a manila folder. "We can't wait," she said coldly. "We need it tonight." She opened the folder and showed me documents. I recognized the format immediately. A power of attorney. But I'd never signed anything like this. I grabbed the papers and examined them closely. There was my signature at the bottom, but it wasn't my signature. It was a forgery. A good one, but still a fake. "You forged this," I said quietly. "You were planning to use this to access my bank accounts." Derek's jaw clenched. "We wouldn't have had to if you'd just helped us when we asked." "When did you ask?" "This is the first I'm hearing about any of this." Crystal laughed bitterly. "We shouldn't have to ask. You're sitting on $500,000 while your own son loses his house. What kind of father does that?" I felt the conversation spiraling into dangerous territory. I pointed at the door. "Get out. Both of you. Now. And I'm calling the police." Derek moved fast. He grabbed my arm roughly, his fingers digging into my bicep. His face was inches from mine. "You call the cops, you'll regret it, old man." I couldn't believe it. My son had never laid a hand on me in anger. Not once in his 38 years. But here he was threatening me in my own home. Crystal already had her phone out recording. "Yeah, Sean, go ahead. Call them. Let's see what they think when we show them this video of you attacking us." I realized what they were doing. They were trying to provoke me into doing something they could use against me. I carefully pulled my arm free and stepped back. "Get out of my house." Derek's face twisted with rage and something else. something that looked almost like hatred. "This isn't over, Dad. That money is rightfully ours. You can't take it with you when you die, you know. Might as well hand it over now." They left, but Derek's words echoed in my mind long after their car pulled away. I stood in my ransacked office, surrounded by the evidence of my son's betrayal, and felt something break inside me. This wasn't about money. This was about who Derek had become. And I didn't recognize him anymore. I barely slept that night. Every sound made me jump, worried they'd come back. At 8 in the morning, I drove straight to Tom Harrison's law office. His secretary tried to tell me he wasn't available, but I walked right past her desk. Tom looked up from his computer, surprise flickering across his face before he arranged it into a professional smile. "Sean, I didn't have you on my calendar today." I shut the door behind me. "You told Derek about my property sale." Tom's smile faltered. "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. My son and daughter-in-law broke into my house last night. They knew about the Riverside property. They knew the exact amount. That information came from you." Tom stood up, putting his hands out in a placating gesture. "Sean, I would never breach attorney-client privilege. If Derek knows something, he must have found out another way." I wanted to believe him. 20 years of trust doesn't disappear easily. But then I remembered something. I'd been going through my scattered papers this morning and found a bank statement. Someone had tried to withdraw $75,000 from my account 2 days ago. The bank had blocked it due to unusual activity. "I need to go to my bank," I told Tom. "We'll continue this conversation later." At First National Bank, the manager, Helen Parker, ushered me into her office immediately. Her face was grave. "Mr. Shaw, I'm glad you came in. We've been trying to reach you about the suspicious withdrawal attempt." She showed me the paperwork. Someone had walked into the bank with a power of attorney document and requested a cashier's check for $75,000. The teller had sensed something wrong and flagged it for review. Helen had personally blocked the transaction. "Do you have security footage?" I asked. Helen pulled it up on her computer. There was crystal clear as day standing at the teller window. She was pushing papers across the counter, arguing with the young teller, who looked increasingly uncomfortable. I filed a police report that afternoon. Officer Rodriguez took my statement but seemed less than enthusiastic. "Family disputes are complicated, sir," he said, barely looking up from his notepad. "Are you sure you don't want to try resolving this privately? My son broke into my house and tried to steal $75,000 from my bank account using forged documents. This isn't a dispute. This is a crime." Rodriguez sighed. "We'll look into it." I drove home feeling exhausted and defeated. But when I turned onto my street, my exhaustion turned to shock. There was a locksmith van in my driveway. A man in coveralls was just finishing installing a new lock on my front door. I jumped out of my car. "What's going on? Who authorized this?" The locksmith turned, looking confused. "You did, sir. Or at least that's what this work order says." He showed me a form with my name and a signature. My forged signature. The form claimed I was traveling and had requested the locks be changed for security purposes. "I never signed this. I never called you." The locksmith's face fell. "Oh no. Sir, I'm so sorry. Someone called yesterday and gave me this authorization. They paid cash up front. I thought everything was legitimate. I ended up having to break into my own house through a window, while the locksmith watched, apologizing repeatedly. Inside, the violation felt even worse than the night before. They'd been back. Items were missing. Family heirlooms. My late wife Margaret's jewelry box. Photo albums from when the kids were young. I went to my computer and saw immediately that someone had been on it. The browser history showed searches that made my blood run cold. Elderly incompetence signs. How to get guardianship of elderly parent. Legal rights of adult children. Elder care facilities in Riverside County. Then I found printed documents in my trash can. Someone had drafted a petition to declare me mentally incompetent. The petition listed evidence. Claims that I was forgetful, confused, making poor financial decisions, unable to care for myself. All lies. But they had photos to support their claims. I looked at the pictures, stunned. There was my refrigerator door open, showing expired milk and moldy food. But I'd just gone grocery shopping 3 days ago. I never let food go bad. They must have planted it. There were photos of unpaid bills scattered on my counter. But I paid all my bills online and on time. They must have stolen those from my mailbox. Photos of my bedroom looking disheveled and messy. But I always made my bed. They'd ransacked it to stage these photos. My phone rang. It was Dorothy, my neighbor. She was 81 and lived 2 doors down. We'd been friends since I moved to this street 30 years ago. "Sean, I need to tell you something," she said, her voice shaking. "Your son and that wife of his came by yesterday. They were asking me questions about you. Strange questions." "What kind of questions?" "They wanted to know if I'd noticed you acting confused, if you'd forgotten things, if you seemed disoriented. Sean, they were trying to get me to say something was wrong with you. I told them you were sharp as a tack, but they kept pushing. I felt sick. They weren't just trying to steal my money. They were building a case to have me declared incompetent. If they succeeded, they could get legal guardianship. They'd control everything. My finances, my medical decisions, where I lived. I'd lose all autonomy. I called my financial advisor, Martin Chen. His assistant put me through immediately. "Sean, I'm glad you called," Martin said. "I wanted to talk to you about something concerning. Your son contacted me yesterday. He said you've been having memory issues and the family is worried about you." "Martin, I don't have memory issues. My son is lying." There was a pause. I was hoping that was the case. He seemed very insistent, though. He asked me to send him copies of all your financial statements. Said the family needed to keep an eye on things. I told him I couldn't do that without your written authorization, but he became quite aggressive. I realized then how calculated this was. Derek was systematically undermining my credibility with everyone in my life, planting seeds of doubt, making people question my competence. So when he filed that petition to declare me incompetent, he'd have witnesses who'd heard about my supposed cognitive decline. I sat in my ransacked house that evening, surrounded by evidence of my son's elaborate betrayal, and understood something terrible. This wasn't a desperate grab for money. This was a long-term plan, and I was running out of time to stop it. The next morning I hired a new attorney. Patricia Reeves came highly recommended by a friend from my church. She was in her 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She listened to my story, without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she looked up at me. "Mr. Shaw, I'm going to be direct with you. This is one of the most systematic cases of elder abuse and fraud I've seen. Your son isn't just desperate. He's methodical. And if what you're telling me about Tom Harrison is true, this goes even deeper." She spent the next 3 days investigating. What she uncovered made my situation infinitely worse. Patricia called me into her office on Thursday afternoon. She had documents spread across her conference table. "Sean, I need you to sit down for this." Saturday. My hands were already shaking. "Tom Harrison has been your attorney for 20 years, but for the last 2 years he's also been Derek's business partner. They co-own a real estate investment company called Harrison and Shaw Properties LLC, and that company is in serious financial trouble. They're $300,000 in debt." I felt like I'd been punched. "Tom and Derek partners." Patricia slid a bank statement across the table. "Here's where it gets worse. The property you sold in Riverside, Tom was your listing agent, but he undervalued it significantly. The property should have sold for $300,000, maybe more. He listed it at $200,000. And the buyer, a shell company, owned by Derek and Tom. They were planning to flip it for profit, using your asset. But the deal fell through when the buyer's financing didn't materialize. So you ended up selling it to a legitimate buyer at the reduced price, and they lost out on their scheme. That's when they pivoted to this incompetency plan." Patricia showed me emails she'd obtained through legal discovery. Messages between Tom and Derek discussing the plan. Tom would file the incompetency petition. When a judge appointed a guardian, Tom would volunteer. As guardian, he'd have full legal control of my assets. He and Derek would liquidate everything, claim it was for my care, and split the proceeds. I couldn't speak. The betrayal was so complete, so total. I'd trusted Tom with my life, with my wife's estate, with everything. Patricia wasn't done. "There's more. Your daughter Amanda is involved." I looked up sharply. Amanda, my daughter, lived in Seattle. We talked maybe once a month. She'd been distant since her mother died, but I thought that was just grief. Patricia showed me more emails. Amanda had been corresponding with Derek for months. She'd agreed to testify about your declining mental state in exchange for 30% of the inheritance. She's been collecting evidence from your phone calls, times when you forgot minor details about her life. Normal things anyone might forget, but they're framing it as memory loss and cognitive decline. I tried calling Amanda immediately. The call went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Blocked. My own daughter had blocked my number. Patricia leaned forward. Sean Derrick has already filed the incompetency petition with the court. You have a hearing in 10 days. If we don't defend this properly, you could lose everything. What do I need to do? We need to prove Derrick's fraud and malicious intent. We need to show this is about money, not concern for your welfare. And we need to do it fast. But things got worse before they got better. Derrick and Crystal filed a restraining order against me that same day. They claimed I'd threatened them during the break and confrontation. Crystal's edited video from that night apparently showed me looking aggressive and Derrick looking scared. It was a complete manipulation of reality, but the temporary restraining order was granted. Now I couldn't contact my own son or daughter-in-law. I couldn't defend myself to them. I couldn't even be within 100 yards of their house. Officer Rodriguez called me that afternoon. His tone was apologetic. Mr. Shaw, I need to let you know we're not pursuing the breaking and entering complaint. Your son claims he still has keys from when he lived with you years ago. Says he was just concerned about your welfare. But he was using tools to break the lock, I protested. He says the lock was stuck and he was trying to help. Without clear evidence of criminal intent, this looks like a family matter. 2 days later, Adult Protective Services showed up at my door. A caseworker named Jennifer explained that they'd received a report about an elderly man living in unsafe conditions, showing signs of self-neglect. I showed her around my house. Everything was clean, organized, well-maintained. My refrigerator was properly stocked. My bills were paid. I was clearly capable and competent. Jennifer seemed satisfied. Mr. Shaw, you're obviously doing fine. But I do need to note in my report that a concern was raised. That's just procedure. I understood what Derrick was doing. Every false report, every manufactured concern created a paper trail. Evidence he could use at the incompetency hearing. Look, Your Honor, even Adult Protective Services was called. My father is clearly in decline. Patricia tried to assure me we had a strong case, but her worry showed. The problem is Derrick's been careful. Most of the evidence is circumstantial. We can prove he tried to access your bank account, but he could claim it was a misunderstanding. We can show the forged power of attorney, but he could say someone else made it. We need something that definitively proves his intent to defraud you. That night, I sat alone in my house, the place where I'd raised my children, where my wife had died in my arms after her long battle with cancer, where I'd hoped to spend my remaining years in peace. And now, my own son was using the legal system as a weapon against me. For the first time in my life, I felt truly helpless. I was 67 years old, alone, facing a conspiracy that included my son, my daughter, and my lawyer. The people I should have been able to trust most in the world. I looked at a photo on my mantle. Margaret and me on our wedding day 45 years ago. Young and full of hope. If she could see what our children had become, it would break her heart. But it couldn't break mine. Not yet. I still had fight left in me. 3 days before the competency hearing, I needed groceries. I'd been avoiding public places, paranoid about running into Derrick and violating the restraining order. But I couldn't hide forever. I drove to the grocery store at 2 in the afternoon, hoping to avoid crowds. I was in the produce section selecting tomatoes when I heard Crystal's voice behind me. Well, look who's here. I turned. Crystal stood 10 feet away, phone already out and recording. Derrick appeared from the next aisle over. They'd been waiting for me. I didn't say anything. I put the tomatoes in my basket and started walking toward the checkout lanes. But Crystal followed me, talking loudly. You're stalking us, Sean. Despite the restraining order, everyone here is a witness. I'm shopping for groceries, I said quietly. I didn't know you'd be here. Derrick stepped in front of my cart, blocking my path. We need to talk about your little stunt with the lawyers. You really think you can fight this? You're just a confused old man who doesn't know what's good for him. Other shoppers were stopping, watching the scene unfold. I could see them pulling out their phones. Great. More witnesses to whatever Derrick and Crystal had planned. Move aside, Derrick. I don't want trouble. Derrick grabbed my arm aggressively, his fingers digging in hard. His body was positioned so that the gathering crowd couldn't see him gripping me. To them, it probably looked like he was just touching my arm. But the pressure was painful, threatening. You're going to drop the lawyers. You're going to cooperate with the guardianship. And you're going to pay us what we're owed. I pulled my arm away from him. Derek stumbled back, but it seemed theatrical. Exaggerated. And then he fell. Just collapsed to the grocery store floor, clutching his arm and crying out in pain. Crystal screamed. He attacked him. Everyone saw it. Someone call the police. I stood there frozen. I barely touched him. The push was defensive, minimal. But the store security cameras positioned behind me probably only caught the final moment. My hand on Derek. Derek falling. Not the aggressive grab that provoked it. Store security arrived. First, then police. Officer Rodriguez, of all people. He looked at me with something like pity as he pulled out his handcuffs. Mr. Shaw, I need you to turn around and put your hands behind your back. You're under arrest for assault in violation of a restraining order. I spent that night in jail. At 67 years old, I'd never been arrested. Never even had a speeding ticket. The holding cell was cold and smelled like disinfectant and fear. The other men in the cell were younger, harder. They ignored me, which was both a relief and somehow made me feel more alone. Patricia got me out on bail the next morning. Her face was tight with anger. This was a setup, Sean. Derek orchestrated this whole thing. But the problem is the optics. You now have an assault charge 48 hours before your competency hearing. Derek went to the hospital and got his bruised arm documented. He pressed full charges. The local newspaper ran a story the next day. The headline read, "Elderly man arrested for assaulting son in grocery store dispute." The article painted me as a confused, violent senior citizen having a mental health crisis. It quoted Derek extensively. "We love my father, but he needs help. He's becoming a danger to himself and others. This is heartbreaking for our family. We just want him to get the care he needs." The article didn't mention Derek breaking into my house, or the forged documents, or any context. Just a sad story about an old man losing his grip on reality and lashing out at his concerned son. My phone started ringing. Friends from church, neighbors, people I'd known for decades. Some were concerned, asking if I was okay, if I needed help. But their voices carried that careful tone people use with the mentally ill, that gentle, patronizing concern. Others were more direct. Bob from my old engineering firm called and suggested I consider moving to a nice, assisted living facility. "Your son seems like he has your best interests at heart, Sean. Maybe you should listen to him." Even Dorothy next door looked at me differently when I went to get my mail. She waved but didn't come over to chat like she usually did. I could see the doubt in her eyes. Derek and Crystal had poisoned my entire social network. Every relationship I had was now tainted with suspicion. "Are you sure Sean is okay? Did you see the news? Maybe his son is right to be concerned." Patricia brought more bad news that afternoon. Tom Harrison filed additional evidence with the court this morning. "They have medical records from your bout of pneumonia last year. They're claiming it affected your brain function and caused cognitive impairment. I had pneumonia for a week. My doctor cleared me completely. There was no brain involvement." They also have affidavits from 3 witnesses. Friends of Derek who claim they saw you acting erratically at a barbecue 6 months ago. Forgetting people's names. Getting lost in your own house. Repeating yourself. "I wasn't even at a barbecue 6 months ago. I was recovering from pneumonia." They're lying. All of them. But under oath, their testimony will carry weight. And there's a handwriting expert claiming your signature has changed in the last year, indicating neurological decline. This is insane. My signature looks the same as it always has. Patricia sighed. "Sean, legally this case is weak, but emotionally, socially it's powerful. Judges often err on the side of protecting elderly people. If Judge Thornton believes there's even a possibility you're declining, she might appoint a temporary guardian just to be safe. And if that guardian is Tom Harrison, you'll lose everything before we can fight it." The hearing was in 2 days. 2 days to prove I wasn't incompetent while dealing with an assault charge, a poisoned reputation, and a conspiracy involving my own children and attorney. That night I sat in my kitchen, unable to eat, unable to sleep. I kept thinking about just giving up, just signing over the money to Derek, making it all stop. The fight was exhausting. The betrayal was crushing. Maybe it would be easier to surrender. I found myself crying. Actually crying, something I hadn't done since Margaret's funeral. I felt so utterly alone, so powerless. The legal system that was supposed to protect me was being weaponized against me. My own son was destroying me with methodical precision, and I didn't know how to stop it. I went to my bedroom and found an old photo album. Pictures of Derek as a baby, as a toddler, his first day of school, his high school graduation, Margaret and me holding baby Derek at the hospital, both of us glowing with pride and hope. We'd been so happy that day, so full of dreams for our son's future. What had happened to that baby, to that boy I'd raised? When had he become this man willing to destroy his own father for money? I thought about Margaret. What would she think? She'd be heartbroken, devastated, but she'd also be strong. Margaret never backed down from a fight, especially when the fight was for what was right. I could almost hear her voice. "Sean, you didn't raise a quitter. Don't you dare give up now." I put the photo album away and made a decision. I wouldn't surrender. I wouldn't let Derek take my dignity along with my money. I might lose. The system might fail me, but I would fight until the very end. Because giving in wouldn't stop Derek. It would just teach him that cruelty and manipulation worked, and I couldn't let that be my legacy. I called Patricia. "I need you to dig deeper. Find everything on Derek, everything on Tom. I don't care what it costs. We're going to fight this with everything we have." Patricia's voice brightened. "That's what I wanted to hear. I'm already on it. And Sean, we're going to win this." I hoped she was right, but hope was getting harder to hold on to. The day before the hearing, Patricia's private investigator came to her office with new information. His name was Frank, a former police detective in his 60s, with tired eyes and a thick folder of documents. "Derek and Crystal's financial situation is worse than you thought," Frank said, spreading papers across Patricia's conference table. "They don't just owe on their house. They borrowed $250,000 from a company called Quick Capital Solutions." "A private lender?" I asked. Frank shook his head grimly. "Quick Capital Solutions is a front for loan sharks. I've seen them before. They operate in legal gray areas, charging exorbitant interest rates using intimidation tactics. Derek and Crystal borrowed that money 8 months ago. The interest rate is 35%. Why would they borrow from loan sharks?" Frank pulled out more documents. "Because no legitimate bank would touch them. They have terrible credit. Multiple maxed-out credit cards. 2 car repossessions. Derek used the loan shark money to invest in Tom Harrison's real estate ventures. Those investments failed spectacularly. Now Derek and Crystal owe $320,000 total, and they've missed the last 4 payments." He showed me photos of threatening letters that had been left at Derek and Crystal's house. The language was carefully worded to avoid explicit threats, but the message was clear. "Pay by the 15th, or we take everything. Your house, your cars, your family." "This explains the desperation," Patricia said. "They're not just greedy. They're terrified." I felt no sympathy. I should have, perhaps. Derek was my son, but he'd made these choices. And instead of asking for help, honestly, he'd chosen to destroy me. "We can use this at the hearing," Patricia continued. "We'll show Derek's motive is purely financial fraud, not concern for you." Then Patricia's phone rang. Unknown number. She answered and put it on speaker. "This is Patricia Reeves," a woman's voice tentative and shaking. "This is Amanda, Derek's sister. I need to talk to my father." I couldn't speak for a moment. Amanda, my daughter, who'd blocked my number, who'd agreed to testify against me. Patricia looked at me. I nodded. "Amanda, this is Sean, your father. Dad. Oh God, Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Her voice broke. She was crying. We arranged to meet at a diner 40 minutes away, outside both Riverside and Los Angeles. Somewhere Derek wouldn't see us. Patricia insisted on coming with me. Amanda was already there when we arrived, sitting in a back booth. She was 42 years old, but looked older, exhausted. When she saw me, she started crying again. I slid into the booth across from her. Patricia sat beside me, protective. "Dad, I didn't know," Amanda said through her tears. "I swear I didn't know how bad this was. Derek told me you were showing signs of dementia. He said the family needed to intervene before you hurt yourself or lost everything to scammers. He made it sound like we were helping you. I wanted to be angry. I was angry. But seeing my daughter break down in front of me stirred something paternal that I couldn't suppress entirely. He promised me $30,000 to help with my student loans, Amanda continued. I know that sounds terrible, greedy, but I'm drowning in debt, Dad. I'm working 2 jobs and barely surviving. When Derek said there was money from Mom's estate that could help us both, I believed him. There is no money from your mother's estate, I said quietly. Everything from Margaret went into family trusts and my retirement accounts. Derek lied to you. Amanda nodded miserably. I know that now. 3 days ago, Derek called me. He told me I needed to testify at your hearing. He wanted me to lie under oath, say I'd witnessed you getting lost while driving, forgetting family members' names, leaving the stove on, and almost starting a fire. Things that never happened. And you refused. I did. And Dad, he went crazy. He threatened me. Said if I didn't help him, he'd make sure I never saw a penny when you died. That's when I realized this wasn't about helping you. It was about taking everything you have before you're even gone. Amanda pulled out her phone. She'd taken screenshots. Messages between Derek and Tom Harrison. Planning sessions. Detailed strategies. The messages were damning. One from Derek to Tom: once we get guardianship, liquidate everything. We'll split it 50-50. The old man will never know what hit him. Another from Derek to Crystal: my father's too trusting. This will be easier than I thought. Just need to keep Amanda in line and we're golden. And one that made my chest tighten: Derek to Crystal after my arrest. Perfect. The old fool played right into our hands. He's finished. They'd planned it all. The grocery store confrontation. My arrest. Everything. Amanda gave Patricia copies of everything. This proves the grocery store incident was a setup, Patricia said, her eyes shining. This changes everything. Amanda looked at me, her face full of guilt and pain. Dad, I don't have an excuse for believing Derek. I should have questioned him. I should have called you. I was selfish and stupid. I chose money over you, and I'll never forgive myself for that. Why are you helping me now? I asked. Because you're my father. Because Mom would be ashamed of me. You and Mom taught me right from wrong. You taught me to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. I forgot that for a while. But I can't watch Derek destroy you. I won't. She agreed to testify at tomorrow's hearing, to expose Derek's plan, to tell the truth. Patricia was elated. This is exactly what we needed. But as we left the diner, I felt conflicted. I was grateful to Amanda, but the betrayal still stung. She'd been willing to lie about me to help take away my autonomy until Derek pushed her too far. What did that say about her character? About our relationship? That night, Derek somehow found out that Amanda had met with me. We learned later that Crystal had seen Amanda's car at the diner and followed her to her hotel. Derek went to Amanda's hotel room at 9 o'clock that night. Hotel guests on Amanda's floor reported hearing screaming. Derek was shouting that Amanda was dead to the family, that she'd get nothing, that she was a traitor. Amanda recorded the whole thing on her phone. Derek, drunk and furious, saying things like, "I'll make sure you regret this, and you're choosing that manipulative old man over your own brother." Hotel security had to physically remove Derek from the premises. Amanda got a video of that too. But Derek's rage meant he knew we had ammunition. He knew Amanda would testify against him. The hearing was tomorrow, and Derek was now desperate and dangerous. I didn't know what he'd do next, but I knew it wouldn't be good. The courthouse was a blocky concrete building downtown, imposing and cold. Patricia and I arrived at 8:30 in the morning, 30 minutes before the hearing. Amanda met us outside, looking pale and nervous. She'd flown in from Seattle late last night. Derek and Crystal arrived with Tom Harrison at 8:45. Derek looked confident, almost smug. He wore a nice suit and had the demeanor of a concerned son doing his difficult duty. When he saw Amanda with me, his jaw tightened, but he didn't approach. We all filed into the small courtroom, Judge Margaret Thornton presiding. She was a woman in her 60s, with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun, and a reputation for being no nonsense but fair. The hearing began at 9. Tom Harrison stood to present the petition. "Your Honor, this is a difficult case for everyone involved. Mr. Derek Shaw loves his father deeply, but he's watched Sean Shaw decline over the past year and can no longer stand by while his father puts himself at risk." Tom laid out the supposed evidence. Photos of my messy house, expired food, unpaid bills, witness statements claiming I'd acted confused or erratic. the handwriting analysis suggesting neurological decline. He called Derek to testify first. Derek took the stand and played his role perfectly. He spoke with controlled emotion like a son barely holding himself together. "Your Honor, this is the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I love my father, but I'm watching him fade. Last month he forgot my name, called me by his brother's name, and my uncle's been dead for 10 years. Complete lies. I'd never confused Derek with my late brother. He got lost driving to the bank," Derek continued. "A route he's driven 1,000 times. I found him sitting in a parking lot 2 miles away, confused about where he was. I had to drive him home. Never happened." Crystal testified next, crying fake tears about how worried they were, how they only wanted to help, how heartbreaking it was to watch me decline. Then Tom dropped his bombshell. He produced a medical evaluation dated 2 weeks ago. Dr. Stephen Fletcher, a neurologist, claiming he'd examined me and found moderate cognitive impairment consistent with early dementia. I was shocked. I'd never met any Dr. Fletcher. Patricia objected immediately. "Your Honor, my client never saw this doctor. This evaluation is fraudulent." Tom produced a signed consent form. My signature. Forged, but a good forgery. Judge Thornton looked troubled. "The document appears legitimate, Mr. Harrison. Do you have evidence it's fraudulent?" "We will demonstrate that, Your Honor," Patricia said. "But may I also note that Dr. Fletcher is not present to testify?" Tom smiled smoothly. "Dr. Fletcher is currently testifying as an expert witness in another case in San Diego, but his written evaluation speaks for itself." Then Tom produced another document. What he claimed was my original will from 8 years ago. According to this will, I left everything equally to Derek and Amanda, with Tom Harrison as executor. Tom argued that I'd recently changed my will to cut Derek out completely, which he claimed was evidence of my impaired judgment. "Your Honor, a mentally competent person doesn't suddenly disinherit his own son without reason. This is clear evidence of Mr. Shaw's declining faculties." I whispered to Patricia. "That old will is fake. My actual will is from 12 years ago. It leaves everything equally to both kids with a community trust as executor, not Tom." Patricia stood. "Your Honor, I request a 30-minute recess. We have significant evidence of fraud that we need to compile." Judge Thornton looked intrigued. 30 minutes, Mr. Reeves. Use it well." In a small conference room down the hall, Patricia, Amanda, and I laid out our case. Patricia organized Amanda's screenshots chronologically. The messages between Derek and Tom planning to liquidate my assets. Derek's admission that the plan was about money, not my welfare. We had the bank records, showing Tom and Derek's business partnership and their massive debts. Documentation that Dr. Fletcher's medical license had been suspended in California and Nevada for falsifying medical reports in previous guardianship cases. A statement from my actual doctor, Dr. Philip Rodriguez, clearing me of any cognitive impairment whatsoever. Hotel security footage of Derek's threatening tirade at Amanda. The locksmith's statement admitting Derek paid him cash to change my locks using forged authorization. And most damning, the cell phone video Amanda took of Derek saying, "The old fool played right into our hands. He's finished." Patricia also had a surprise. She'd subpoenaed Derek and Crystal's bank records. They showed a $50,000 payment from Tom Harrison to Derek 3 months ago, right when this whole plan started. We returned to the courtroom at 10. Judge Thornton looked at us expectantly. Patricia stood. "Your Honor, this case is not about protecting an incompetent elderly man. This is a case of conspiracy to commit elder abuse and financial fraud." She methodically presented every piece of evidence. Amanda testified admitting her own guilt, but exposing Derek's manipulation and lies. She played the recordings, Derek's threats at the hotel, his admission that the grocery store arrest was a setup. The locksmith testified via phone about Derek's forged documents and cash payment. Patricia revealed Dr. Fletcher's fraudulent history, his license suspensions, his pattern of falsifying evaluations for money. The man was a professional liar, and Tom Harrison had hired him. She showed the text messages between Derek and Tom, planning to liquidate my assets, split the money, their $50,000 payment 3 months ago, their failing business partnership. Derek's face transformed during the presentation. The confident mask slipped away. Panic, then rage took over. Crystal looked like she wanted to bolt from the courtroom. Tom Harrison tried to object repeatedly, but his involvement was now glaringly obvious. Judge Thornton cut him off mid-sentence. "Mr. Harrison, I suggest you sit down and be quiet." Finally, Patricia addressed Derek's claim about my changed will. "Your Honor, the will Mr. Harrison presented as my client's original will is fraudulent. Here is Sean Shaw's actual will executed 12 years ago, properly notarized and filed with his previous attorney. It leaves his estate equally to both children, with a community trust as executor, not Tom Harrison." Judge Thornton examined the documents. Her expression grew colder. She turned to Derek. Mr. Shaw approached the bench. Derek stood on shaking legs. "Did you conspire with your attorney to defraud your father?" Derek's mouth opened and closed. No, Your Honor. This is all a misunderstanding. I was just trying to protect him. He's my father. I love him. Answer the question. Did you and Mr. Harrison plan to take control of your father's assets through this guardianship petition?" Derek's composure finally shattered. "He doesn't need all that money. He's old. He'll probably die in a few years anyway. I'm his son. It's my inheritance. Why should I wait for him to die when he's just going to sit on it?" The courtroom went dead silent. Even Crystal looked horrified. Derek had just admitted everything. Judge Thornton's face was like stone. "Mr. Shaw, you have just confessed to attempted elder abuse and fraud in my courtroom. This petition is denied in its entirety." She turned to Tom Harrison. "Mr. Harrison, I am ordering an immediate investigation into your conduct. The State Bar will be notified of your actions today. You may face disbarment proceedings." She looked at Derek and Crystal. "I am granting Sean Shaw a 5-year protective order against both of you. You are not to contact him, approach him, or come within 500 yards of his residence. I am also referring this case to the district attorney for potential criminal prosecution." The hearing was over. I'd won. Derek sat in his chair, face buried in his hands. Crystal was crying real tears now, tears of despair as their lives collapsed around them. Amanda hugged me in the hallway outside the courtroom. "Dad, I'm so sorry for all of it." I hugged her back, but I didn't say it was okay, because it wasn't. Not yet. Patricia shook my hand. "We did it, Sean. You're safe." I nodded, but I didn't feel victorious. I felt exhausted and heartbroken. I'd saved my assets and my autonomy, but I'd lost my son, maybe forever. 2 weeks after the hearing, the district attorney's office formally charged Derek and Crystal with attempted fraud, elder abuse, and forgery. Tom Harrison's law license was suspended, and he faced multiple charges of legal malpractice and conspiracy to commit fraud. The DA offered me the chance to make a victim impact statement at Derek's arraignment. I went to the courthouse, but when they asked if I wanted to speak, I declined. I just sat in the gallery and watched my son plead guilty to reduced charges in exchange for avoiding trial. Derek received 3 years of probation, 200 hours of community service, and mandatory restitution. He was ordered to pay me $75,000 for legal fees, damages, and emotional distress. Crystal received the same sentence. Their house went into foreclosure within a month. They lost everything they'd tried to steal from me. The loan sharks, they owed money to pursued them relentlessly. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Derek and Crystal's marriage fell apart under the pressure. Crystal filed for divorce 6 months later, blaming Derek for ruining their lives. Derek wrote me a letter from a court-ordered therapy program. I opened it hoping for an apology, some acknowledgement of the pain he'd caused. But the letter was angry, bitter. He blamed me for pressing charges, for destroying his life. He called me vindictive and cruel, said I'd always been selfish, and that he'd only wanted what was rightfully his. I read it once and filed it away. I realized then that Derek might never understand what he'd done wrong. Some people never develop that kind of self-awareness or moral compass. They go through life blaming others for the consequences of their own choices. I kept the protective order in place indefinitely. Even after the 5 years expired, I renewed it. Derek had shown me who he really was. I believed him. My relationship with Amanda was more complicated. She'd betrayed me too. She'd been willing to lie about my mental state for money. That kind of breach doesn't heal quickly or easily. But Amanda did something Derek never did. She took responsibility. She attended family counseling with me. 6 months of difficult, painful sessions where we worked through the betrayal and tried to rebuild trust. Amanda paid back every penny Derek had given her. She donated it to the Elder Abuse Prevention Alliance, a charity that helps seniors protect themselves from financial exploitation. She volunteered with them, speaking at community centers about her experience and warning others about the signs of elder abuse. After about a year, Amanda and I started having Sunday dinners together, just the two of us. We'd cook together in my kitchen and talk about safe topics: work, weather, books we'd read. We avoided talking about Derek or the hearing for a long time. The relationship wasn't what it had been before. That innocence was gone. I'd learned that Amanda was capable of prioritizing money over family. She'd learned that about herself too. But we were trying, building something new from the wreckage of what we'd lost. I updated my will with a new attorney, a woman named Susan Walsh, who came highly recommended and had no connections to Tom Harrison. I left my estate split between Amanda and several charities focused on elder abuse prevention and legal aid for seniors. Derek was explicitly excluded with a detailed explanation of why. I also established a trust with strict protections. No single person could control my assets if I became incapacitated. A panel of 3 trustees, none of them family members, would make decisions collaboratively. I wasn't going to let anyone weaponize my own assets against me again. I installed a comprehensive security system at my house. Cameras, motion sensors, alerts that went to both my phone and a monitoring company. I changed all my passwords and set up 2-factor authentication on every account. I became vigilant in ways I'd never had to be before. I also became active in the community, raising awareness about elder financial abuse. I spoke at senior centers, church groups, and community meetings. I told my story, leaving out names but sharing the warning signs. How family members can manipulate and isolate elderly relatives. How to protect yourself legally and financially. Many seniors approached me afterward with tears in their eyes, sharing their own stories. Some had lost everything to scheming relatives. Others had caught the fraud in time, but were left with the same heartbreak I felt. We formed a support group, people who understood what it meant to be betrayed by family. I thought often about Margaret. My late wife would have been devastated by what Derek became, but I also think she would have been proud that I fought back. Margaret was strong. She never backed down from bullies, and she never let anyone take advantage of our family. I wished she were here, to help me process this, to mourn with me the son we'd raised and lost. But she was gone, and I had to navigate this pain alone. One warm evening in late spring, I sat on my back porch with a cup of coffee, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. I thought about the night I'd come home from that canceled flight, the night I caught Derek and Crystal breaking into my house. If my flight hadn't been canceled, I would have been in Phoenix. Derek and Crystal would have succeeded in forging the power of attorney and stealing from my account. They would have filed the incompetency petition without me knowing. By the time I came home, it might have been too late to fight it effectively. Sometimes the universe gives you exactly what you need, even when it comes wrapped in pain. That canceled flight saved me. It gave me the chance to fight back before Derek's plan was too far along to stop. I'd lost my son. That truth settled in my chest like a stone. Derek was alive somewhere in California, but he was dead to me. The boy I'd raised, the man I'd hoped he'd become, didn't exist. Maybe never had. But I'd kept my dignity, my autonomy, my home. My assets would go where I wanted them to go, to people and causes that deserved them, not to someone who saw me as an obstacle between them and money. I learned that family isn't just about blood. It's about loyalty and respect and love. Derek had my blood, but none of the rest. Amanda had faltered, but was finding her way back. The friends who believed in me, who supported me through the trial, who never questioned my competence, they were my real family. I also learned that being old doesn't mean being powerless. The legal system tried to paint me as a helpless old man who needed protecting. Tom and Derek counted on that narrative. They thought my age made me vulnerable, easy to manipulate. Instead, I proved that age brought wisdom, experience, resilience. I'd lived 67 years on this earth. I'd survived loss and hardship and heartbreak. I wasn't going to be defeated by my own son's greed. The garden needed tending. I'd neglected it during the worst of the legal battle. Now, in the gentle evening light, I knelt in the dirt and started pulling weeds. My knees ached a bit. My back was stiffer than it used to be. But my mind was clear. My hands were steady. And my heart, though scarred, was still beating. Dorothy called out from next door, asking if I needed help with the heavy lifting. I smiled and waved back. "I'm fine, Dorothy. Just fine." And it was true. For the first time in months, I actually was fine. The betrayal would always hurt. There would be moments, probably for the rest of my life, when I'd think about Derek as a little boy, when I'd remember teaching him to ride a bike or helping him with homework or watching him graduate college. Those memories were real, even if the man he became dishonored them. But I'd survived. I'd fought back against overwhelming odds and won. I'd protected what was mine and helped others along the way. My phone buzzed. A text from Amanda. "Dinner Sunday, I'm cooking your favorite pot roast." I typed back, "I'll be there." Life wasn't perfect. My family was smaller, forever changed by betrayal and loss. But I had my home, my independence, my peace of mind, and I had Amanda slowly earning back my trust one Sunday dinner at a time. That evening, as the sun finally set and stars began appearing in the darkening sky, I thought about what I'd tell someone else going through what I'd gone through. Trust is earned through actions, not words or biology. Just because someone is related to you doesn't mean they have your best interests at heart. Never let anyone make you feel powerless because of your age. You have rights, and you have the ability to fight for them. Document everything when you sense something wrong. Evidence is your best defense against manipulation. Stand up for yourself even when it costs you relationships. Sometimes the price of peace is your dignity, and that's too high a price to pay. Real family is defined by loyalty and love, not just shared DNA. Some of the people closest to you by blood might be the farthest from you in character. Justice might be slow, but it's worth pursuing. Don't give up just because the fight is hard. Forgiveness doesn't mean allowing abuse to continue. You can forgive someone from a distance while protecting yourself from further harm. Sometimes the hardest part of love is letting go of people who hurt you, even when they're family. Your worth isn't determined by how others treat you. Derek's betrayal said everything about him and nothing about me. You're never too old to fight for what's right. Age brings wisdom and strength, not weakness. I went inside, locked my doors, set my security system, and made myself dinner. A simple meal. Grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, a glass of water. I ate at my kitchen table, the same table where Margaret and I had shared thousands of meals, where we'd raised our children, where we'd built a life. That life looked different now, but it was still mine, and I'd fought to keep it that way. Before I went to bed, I did something I hadn't done in months. I pulled out the photo album from my wedding day. Margaret in her white dress, glowing with joy. Me in my rented tuxedo, looking like the luckiest man alive. We'd been so young, so hopeful. We couldn't have imagined then what our son would become, the pain he'd cause. But we also couldn't have imagined the strength we'd find when tested. "I miss you, Margaret," I said to the photo, "but I think you'd be proud." I didn't let him win. I closed the album and put it back on the shelf. Then I went to bed in my own house, in my own bed with my own future still in my own hands. And I slept peacefully for the first time in months. Now I'd like to ask you something. Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone you trusted completely? How did you handle it? Did you fight back or did you walk away? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and maybe help someone who's going through something similar feel less alone. Subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories about overcoming betrayal and finding strength in difficult times. And please share this with anyone who might need to hear it. You never know who might be facing their own Derek and needs the encouragement to fight back. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that you're stronger than you think, and you're never too old to stand up for yourself. Take care of yourselves, protect what's yours, and never let anyone make you feel powerless. Until next time, stay strong and stay wise.